exposed my dad's decades-long and fraud at my child's birthday party. I can still hear the sound of glass shattering against the hardwood floor. It wasn't an accident. My father had thrown his old leather wallet at me hard enough to break the wine glass I'd been holding right in the middle of his retirement party. Everyone froze. Aria, my mother, gasped so loudly it silenced the whole room. The smell of wet dog from someone's coat in the corner seemed to fill my lungs, making it impossible to breathe. That was the exact moment I knew my father's secrets weren't just his anymore, they were mine, and they were going to destroy me if I didn't fight back. What led to that moment started months earlier, when I stumbled across documents that showed my dad had been blackmailing a public figure with evidence of it. The fallout from that discovery poisoned every corner of my life. I lived in constant fear of retaliation, sleepless nights filled with nightmares, and the gnawing panic that he would drag me down with him. And he did. To understand how we got there, you need to know this. For most of my life, Timothy wasn't just my dad. He was my protector. At least that's what I thought. Growing up, I remember evenings at our small 2-story house on Fairmont Drive. My mom, Aria, would make her strawberry shortcake. She always insisted on fresh berries layered with whipped cream. My dad would sit in his recliner, wallet balanced on the armrest, counting cash like it was a game. I thought it was normal for dads to carry around envelopes of money and whisper about leverage on the phone late at night. In high school, I'd brag to friends that my dad was the smartest man I knew. He could solve problems for people. Looking back, that phrase makes me want to vomit. The first real red flag came when I turned 16. My debit card stopped working at the gas station, and when I asked Dad about it, he snapped. "Don't ever question me about money again, Madison." His face turned crimson, and I froze in fear. A week later, I found out he had racked up debt under my name, $2847 on a credit card I didn't even know existed. At the time, I pushed it down. He said he'd fix it, and I believed him. Because back then, I still wanted to believe he was protecting me. Fast forward to his retirement party. My mom had organized everything at the lakeside banquet hall. There was a sheet cake decorated with strawberries and happy retirement temp written in blue frosting. People from his office, neighbors, even some city officials were there. The smell of wine and roast beef mingled in the air. I remember feeling like an outsider and my own family smiling, nodding, pretending. I'd already discovered his secret by then. Late one night around midnight, I'd gone looking for my phone charger in his study. Instead, I found a folder hidden under tax documents. Inside were photos, text screenshots, and bank transfers proving he was blackmailing a local politician over an... My hand shook so violently I almost dropped the folder. I wanted to confront him immediately, but fear paralyzed me. My dad wasn't just manipulative, he could be physically threatening. He'd never hit me, but the way he slammed doors, the way his fists clenched, I knew better than to push. At the party, I watched him shake hands and laugh, acting like the model retiree. My mom beamed at him like he was the man of the year. And I sat there, tasting strawberries from the cake but feeling bile rise in my throat. Every time someone congratulated him, I thought, if you only knew who he really is. Then came the wallet. He'd noticed me whispering to my mom, trying to hint that something was wrong. His smile dropped. He reached into his pocket, pulled out that worn leather wallet, creases deep from decades of use, and hurled it at me across the room. The silence after the crash was deafening. "Stop lying, Madison," he growled through clenched teeth, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. Everyone stared. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. That was the first public crack in his perfect facade. But it wouldn't be the last. Because what I didn't know yet was that he hadn't just been blackmailing strangers. He had been impersonating me online for years, draining my finances, and destroying my reputation in ways I couldn't even imagine. And the retirement party was only the beginning of the fallout. After the wallet incident at his retirement party, people whispered. They whispered about me, not him. What did she do to set him off? I overheard a coworker of his mutter near the punch table. That's how it always was, his anger became my shame. The rest of that night, I couldn't taste anything. Not the roast beef, not the strawberries on the cake. Just the metallic bitterness of fear coating my tongue. I went home shaking, unable to sleep. Around midnight, I sat on my bed staring at the folder of evidence I'd hidden in my backpack. My hands trembled as I imagined someone breaking into my apartment, taking it back. Every creak of the walls made me jolt. I remember gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white, but I couldn't bring myself to call the police. What would I even say? My dad's blackmailing someone important, and I'm scared he'll hurt me if I tell. They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd tell him. In high school, I thought my anxiety was just a phase. Panic attacks that made my vision tunnel during pep rallies, nightmares where I woke up screaming, trust issues that ruined friendships. I told myself it was hormones. But looking back, the seeds were planted by him. By watching him manipulate people, by learning that love came with conditions, and by living with the constant fear of setting him off. Even then, I had one refuge short. I used to sit in the corner of my room sketching portraits with a cheap set of charcoal pencils. My dad hated it. Waste of time, he'd say, snatching the sketchpad out of my hands. Focus on something useful. I should have known that his definition of useful meant useful to him. After the party, red flags started piling up faster than I could process them. The first was my credit report. A notification pinged on my phone, another inquiry. Another account I hadn't opened. I dug deeper and realized someone had been applying for credit cards, loans, even store accounts in my name. Thousands of dollars in attempts and some successful. I confronted him once, just once, when I found a $700 Best Buy purchase on a card tied to me. "Dad, why are you using my name?" My voice cracked, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. He didn't flinch. He just smirked. "Because you don't know how to handle money, Madison. I'm teaching you responsibility." I wanted to scream, but the weight of his stare crushed me. Instead, I went to my mother. Mom, he's stealing from me, I whispered in the kitchen while she washed dishes. She froze, dish halfway to the drying rack. Don't talk like that, she whispered back, glancing toward the living room where he sat watching TV. You know how he gets. That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to protect me. She was too afraid of him or too dependent. But the worst betrayal hadn't hit me yet. That came through my doctor. I'd been in therapy for a while, trying to rebuild some sense of self-worth. My counselor had diagnosed me with PTSD, nightmares, panic attacks, hypervigilance, the whole list. I was starting to trust her. Starting to hope. But then, one night, my dad quoted something only my doctor should have known. A private detail about my medications. The room spun. My stomach dropped. I confronted my doctor at my next appointment, and after enough pressure, she broke down. Your father, he's been contacting me. He said it was for your safety. I remember clawing at my arms, trying not to scream. My own medical information weaponized by him. Another layer of trust shattered. Meanwhile, at work, the consequences were spilling over. I was called into HR. Madison, my boss said, frowning, we've had complaints about your performance, missing deadlines, strange emails sent from your account. Emails I hadn't written. I realized then he'd been impersonating me online. For years. Setting up accounts, sending messages, building a digital shadow of me that I had no control over. Those weren't me, I whispered, but my boss's face stayed skeptical. Walking out of that meeting, I felt the walls closing in. Friends stopped texting back. Neighbors looked away at the grocery store. I could feel the whispers trailing behind me, what's wrong with her? The only glimmer of hope came from an unexpected place, a whistleblower. Someone who had once worked with my dad. They messaged me anonymously, claiming to have evidence. You're not crazy, they wrote. He's been doing this for decades, not just to you. I didn't know whether to believe them, but it was the first time someone validated my reality. That maybe I wasn't just paranoid. That maybe, finally, the truth would come out. But with validation came terror. If he'd been at this for decades, what else was buried beneath the surface? The red flags weren't just warnings anymore. They were road signs pointing toward an explosion I couldn't stop. And it was coming sooner than I thought. The message from the whistleblower haunted me. He's been doing this for decades, not just to you. At first, I thought it was some cruel prank, maybe even him trying to mess with my head. But then the files came. Dozens of scanned documents, emails, even old letters. Each one confirmed what I'd suspected and more. My father wasn't just blackmailing one politician. He had a whole network of secrets spanning back to the late 90s. Bank transfers, threats, incriminating photos. He had built his retirement fund on other people's shame. And my name was all over it. One document hit me like a gut punch, an online account in my name, created in 2014. It had messages blackmailing people signed to Madison. Reading them made my skin crawl. They weren't just impersonating me, they were making me look like the villain. I didn't know who to trust, so I turned to the one place I thought I'd be safe, my therapist. Sitting in her office, hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm tea, I confessed everything. I can't sleep. Every night I dream he's breaking into my apartment. I wake up drenched in sweat. Sometimes I hear his voice when I'm alone. She nodded, scribbling notes. That's hypervigilance, common with trauma. But it's more than that, I whispered. He's destroying my life. He's using my name to ruin people. My boss thinks I'm unstable. My friends don't trust me, even my doctor. My throat closed. Even my doctor was feeding him my medical information. Her eyes widened. That was the moment I realized my father's reach wasn't just long, it was everywhere. The fallout kept spreading. At the grocery store, a woman in the cereal aisle gave me a dirty look. Shame on you, she muttered. I blinked. Excuse me? She held up her phone. There was a forum thread with my name, my photo, and screenshots of file messages. Messages threatening families, demanding money. All tied back to me. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. That's not me, I whispered, but she was already walking away. That night, I sat in my car outside my apartment, unable to go inside. The smell of wet dog drifted from the neighbor's porch, grounding me in the worst way. I slammed my fist into the steering wheel, sobbing. My father hadn't just broken my trust, he'd stolen my identity. He'd weaponized my existence. The whistleblower finally revealed themselves, a former colleague of his named Daniel. He told me stories I didn't want to believe. He's been at this since before you were born. Blackmail, fraud, impersonation. He uses people, then discards them. I left when I realized he was starting to involve his family. My family? I whispered. Daniel looked me dead in the eye. You weren't the first. Your mother wasn't spared either. I thought of Ari, my mom smiling at him during the retirement party, ignoring my pleas. Did she know? Or was she just another victim? The weight of it all crushed me. I stopped going out. Stopped answering texts. Every sound in my apartment made me jump. My body never rested, always braced for impact. My nightmares escalated, him pounding on my door at midnight, his wallet slamming against my head, people screaming my name in disgust. The stress bled into work until I couldn't function. HR sat me down again. Madison, your performance hasn't improved. We have to consider termination. I wanted to scream, I'm not lazy, I'm drowning. But all that came out was silence. Because how do you explain that your father has been impersonating you online for years? That your boss thinks you're incompetent because of him? The final blow of this chapter came when I checked my bank account. Negative balance. Drained. Thousands gone. I found the transactions, online gambling sites, subscription payments, wire transfers to names I didn't recognize. All tied to the email address he had created in my name. That was the night I collapsed on my kitchen floor, sobbing until I couldn't breathe. My identity, my finances, my reputation, everything had been stripped away. And worse, I still felt like that little girl in high school, begging him to stop, believing maybe he was just teaching me responsibility. But the truth was undeniable now. He wasn't protecting me. He was destroying me. And the world believed his version of me more than the real me. That's when I made a decision. I couldn't keep living like a ghost in my own life. If he wanted to impersonate me, I would show the world who he really was. I started gathering everything: the whistleblower's files, my credit reports, the stolen emails, even recordings of my therapy sessions where I described his threats. I didn't know how yet, but I knew this: the next time I saw him, I wouldn't stay silent. And that opportunity came sooner than I ever expected. Because the next time we'd face each other was at my own child's birthday party. And I was going to expose him in front of everyone. It was my daughter's 6th birthday, July 14th, 2023, at exactly 3:15 p.m. The backyard was decorated with pastel balloons, streamers, and a strawberry cake, the same kind my mom used to make when I was a kid. I felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with dread. My father had been invited, of course. Aria had insisted. It's family, she said. He deserves to see his granddaughter. But I knew better. I'd spent the past week gathering evidence: screenshots of emails he sent pretending to be me, credit card statements showing my $2847 debt, documents from the whistleblower revealing decades of blackmail. I had my phone ready, my laptop open, recordings saved, all lined up like weapons in a war I never wanted to fight. The party started innocuously enough. Kids screamed and ran through sprinklers. Parents sipped lemonade. I tried to smile as Timothy arrived, carrying his old leather wallet in his back pocket, the one that had become a symbol of fear for me. He greeted me with that fake warmth, brushing my shoulder. "You look tired, Madison," he said, eyes glinting. "Stress of motherhood, huh?" I felt my chest tighten, heart hammering. This was the man who'd ruined my identity, drained my finances, humiliated me online, and corrupted my trust. And here he was, pretending to care. I couldn't let it go any longer. The moment came when we were about to cut the cake. The strawberries glistened under the afternoon sun, frosting melting slightly. Kids crowded around, faces sticky with anticipation. I took a deep breath, feeling the familiar panic start to rise in my chest. Nightmares, panic attacks, trust issues, they all flooded back. But I had therapy. I had preparation. I had Daniel's whistleblower files. "Everyone, wait," I called, voice shaking but firm. The crowd turned. Timothy's smile faltered. "What is this?" he asked, suspicion creeping into his tone. I held up my laptop. "I think it's time everyone knows the truth." I projected the screen onto the backyard wall. Emails, screenshots, bank statements, everything showing that he had impersonated me, stolen my money, and destroyed my reputation. I revealed the messages he had sent online, threats disguised as my words. The hush that fell over the backyard was deafening. Kids clutched each other, parents gawked, and my own mother's face went pale. "Madison," what he started, but I cut him off. "You thought you were protecting me, but you were ruining my life. You used my identity, my credit, even my medical records. Do you know how many panic attacks I've had because of you? How many nightmares I woke up screaming?" My voice cracked, tears streaming. "You've been living a lie for decades, and I have proof. Police are already involved." The crowd erupted. Some gasped, others whispered furiously. I saw faces turn, recognition dawning in a few who had suspected but been too afraid to act. He tried to lunge at me, wallet in hand, but my brother-in-law and Daniel, who had shown up, secretly grabbed him. Chaos ensued. Kids screamed. A balloon arch collapsed. One of my daughter's friends toppled into the strawberry cake, sending frosting and berries flying. Someone called the police. "Stay back, Timothy," I shouted, adrenaline surging. My hands shook, but I felt the clarity I hadn't known in years. For the first time, I wasn't terrified. I was empowered. The officers arrived within minutes, taking statements. Timothy was arrested for fraud, impersonation, and blackmail spanning decades. Aria clutched my hand, sobbing. She finally admitted she knew some of what he was doing, but had been too scared to intervene. The aftermath was brutal. My mother and I had to navigate our fractured relationship, but there was a sliver of reconciliation. Friends and co-workers who had whispered about me finally understood I had been a victim. Daniel's testimony and the evidence I presented helped clear my name. Financially, it was a disaster but recoverable. I was left with the emotional wreckage, panic attacks, nightmares, and trust issues that therapy would have to help me rebuild. But for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: relief. And amidst the chaos, my daughter laughed, oblivious to the storm, smearing frosting across her cheeks. That simple joy reminded me why I had fought. Why I had finally chosen to face him. For the first time, I could see a path forward not defined by fear or shame, but by truth and resilience. I stepped back, looked at the aftermath, and whispered to myself, I survived him. I survived this. And I am still me. The battle wasn't over. Legal proceedings, financial recovery, and rebuilding trust would take months, maybe years. But the most important thing had changed. I no longer felt powerless. I had exposed him, and I had reclaimed my life, even if it was messy, chaotic, and raw. The strawberries on that ruined cake tasted bitter, but they also tasted like victory. The days after my daughter's birth, they felt like wading through tar. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving only exhaustion, panic, and the gnawing realization that my life was irreparably changed. I had exposed my father, but the damage he had done didn't vanish with his arrest. At work, things were worse than I imagined. HR called me into a meeting. "Madison, we've received more complaints about emails, conduct, and behavior," my boss said, avoiding eye contact. I wasn't. I started, voice trembling, but I stopped. I couldn't explain that the emails had been sent by my father impersonating me. The company wouldn't take my word alone. My reputation, carefully built over years, had been shredded. I felt every eye in that room judging me. I started having panic attacks almost daily. The slightest sound of car backfiring, a phone notification would make my chest seize, my hands clammy. Nightmares haunted every night. I dreamt of my father in my apartment, lurking in corners, whispering threats, wielding his old leather wallet like a weapon. I woke drenched in sweat, gasping, hands shaking uncontrollably. Even social life wasn't safe. Friends avoided me. Neighbors whispered. At the grocery store, I overheard someone murmur, "That's the girl from the online scandal, right?" I felt my stomach drop, bile rising. It wasn't just my father who had stolen my identity, it was the world that had believed him first, and me never. Therapy became my lifeline. My counselor scheduled 3 weekly sessions to help manage the hypervigilance, panic attacks, and trust issues. "You're rewiring your brain," she told me one day, "learning that danger isn't everywhere, even if your body thinks it is." I clutched the edge of the couch, sobbing. I don't even know who I am anymore, I thought. Financially, I hit rock bottom. The $28.47 debt was just the tip of the iceberg. Timothy had racked up thousands more in my name, draining bank accounts, maxing credit lines, and leaving me with a negative balance. I spent hours on the phone with banks, credit agencies, and lawyers. Every call felt like reliving the betrayal. Even my medical records had been compromised. I had to confront my doctor again, and this time she promised stricter privacy measures. But the damage lingered. I didn't feel safe anywhere. Then there was the emotional betrayal from my mother. Aria had been complicit by silence. She hadn't reported him, hadn't warned me, hadn't protected me. Seeing her in tears was a strange mix of relief and anger. "You knew. You did nothing." I slept in my daughter's room those nights, clutching a small hand, afraid to be alone. Sometimes I'd hear noises outside of cars, dogs, neighbors moving, and I'd jump, heart racing, imagining my father had escaped custody. My therapist called it hyper-awareness of trauma triggers. I called it life now. Even my art, the one thing that had once been my refuge, felt hollow. Every sketch card reminded me of his interference, every pencil stroke tainted by the thought that he had been trying to erase me, impersonate me, destroy my creative identity. The public humiliation stung. Social media threads still circulated, people tagging me in discussions about the impersonation scandal. Strangers commented, whispered, speculated. My face felt permanently exposed. Trust was a currency I didn't have. There were moments I thought about giving up entirely. Sitting on the bathroom floor, staring at the reflection in the mirror, I felt like a stranger. My life, my name, my finances, my reputation all stolen, manipulated, and weaponized. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't think straight. The panic attacks blurred into depression. I started journaling obsessively, trying to record the truth in case my memory failed me. Every word, every day, every dollar amount mattered. I had to keep track of reality because he had spent decades rewriting it for everyone else. Even in therapy, progress is incremental. My counselor guided me through exercises to reclaim a sense of safety. Breathing techniques, grounding exercises, reframing negative thoughts. I practiced repeating, "I am safe. I am not him. I am real." But the truth was brutal. For months, I lived like a shadow. The person I had been, the confident, art-loving, optimistic medicine, was gone. Only fragments remained, buried beneath panic attacks, sleepless nights, and public shame. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a spark remained. That spark was my daughter's laughter. My sketches. The tiny defiance in my heart that refused to let him win completely. I didn't know it yet, but that spark would be my lifeline. Rebuilding my life was nothing like the movies. There were no dramatic montages, no instant redemption. Just days and nights of therapy, phone calls, and painstaking small steps. The panic attacks didn't disappear overnight. Nightmares still came, sometimes vivid enough that I would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat. But slowly, ever so slowly, I started taking control again. Therapy became my sanctuary. 3 sessions a week, sometimes more, focused on managing hypervigilance, nightmares, and trust issues. My counselor taught me grounding techniques, feeling the floor beneath my feet, the texture of a pencil between my fingers, the scent of coffee in the morning. I even started a safe space journal, writing every fear, every betrayal, every memory to exercise it from my mind. "I'm proud of you, Madison," she said one afternoon, her voice calm. "You're learning that your body doesn't have to live in constant alert." I had never realized how much of myself had been hijacked. Timothy hadn't just stolen my identity online, he had rewired my thinking. I had learned to doubt myself, to question reality, to hide in plain sight. Therapy helped me reclaim that. Art became more than a refuge, it became my weapon and my healing. I started with simple sketches, my hands, my daughter's tiny feet, the strawberries from her birthday cake. Slowly, I moved to paintings, expressive abstracts that captured fear, rage, and sorrow. I'd even set up a small studio in a corner of my apartment, walls lined with canvases in various stages of completion. The physical act of creation grounded me, reminded me that I was real, that my thoughts and experiences mattered, and that my voice could be heard. Financially, I fought back too. I worked with lawyers to reverse fraudulent transactions, close the accounts he had opened in my name, and repair my credit. It was exhausting, but every corrected bank statement, every cleared debt felt like reclaiming a small piece of my life. Slowly, the $28.47 credit card debt and the thousands more that had accumulated became manageable. I started to see a future where I could be financially independent, free from his manipulation. Socially, I rebuilt trust in cautious steps. Some friends returned when they understood the truth. Neighbors stopped whispering once the legal proceedings were public. My workplace eventually reinstated me fully after explaining the impersonation and fraud. But I also learned a hard lesson: some people I trusted would never return. That grief was part of healing too. One night, I was in my studio, brush in hand, painting strawberries on a canvas inspired by my daughter's birthday cake. My phone buzzed with a message from Daniel, the whistleblower. "They finally admitted everything in court," he wrote. "Your father's crimes, decades of blackmail, fraud, identity theft, it's all public now, you did it." I felt tears slide down my cheeks, not from fear or panic, but relief. And anger. and triumph, all at once. I had survived him. Survived the lies, the betrayal, the fear. And I had done it without losing myself completely. I realized that reclaiming my life meant more than surviving, it meant creating. I started sharing my art online, carefully, cautiously, and found a small community of supportive followers. I sold a few pieces, enough to start rebuilding my savings. I even began teaching online classes for other trauma survivors, using art as a tool to reconnect with themselves. The whispers, the shame, the manipulation, they didn't disappear entirely. Some nights, the panic still flares up. But I have tools now, a support system, and a life that is authentically mine. Looking back, the journey was brutal, raw, and sometimes humiliating. Timothy's shadow loomed over me for years, infecting my identity, finances, and relationships. But I emerged stronger, more self-aware, and resilient. Art gave me my voice back. Therapy gave me my mind back. And slowly, I began to smile again, not as a mask but as me. I still smell the faint wet dog in my apartment sometimes and flinch at sudden noises. I still remember the strawberry cake at my daughter's birthday, the chaos, and the police intervention. But now, those memories fuel me rather than paralyze me. I am Madison. I am real. I am here. And I am free. The strawberries on my canvas glisten in the studio light, vivid and triumphant, a testament that life messy, painful, and beautiful can be rebuilt.